Okay, we're back. So I've shaped this, as I said, using slicing cuts. I have done a little bit of scraping. I just needed to sort a few things out. I said earlier, the problem with acrylic is it's a plastic. It can melt. And you'll see people sanding it on YouTube videos. I have a problem with that. You've got to keep it lubricated, you've got to keep it cool. And the best way to do that is to use something like this, which is a cloth-backed paper. I keep a small container of water here, and I use this when I'm sanding acrylic. So it's a wet and dry process. You'll notice I've put a piece of cloth here underneath the job, and that is to catch the water. I don't need it sitting on my lathe rusting it all up at a great rate of knots. So here we go. Now when I sand it, normal practice underneath, but you should be able to see a milky sort of residue on the paper. Keep moving it. Don't be tempted to just sit there, because that generates heat. Okay, and all I'm doing. Now, you might also have noticed I've started with 240 grade. Okay, because I've used a slicing cut, I don't need to start with a heavier grade of sandpaper. I can use this finer grade wet and dry. So we'll do this. Okay, that's 240. I will now go to 320. And again, I'm always watching that milky sort of residue. When I've been there long enough, I'll turn it around, I'll go to a fresh piece. That means fresh water, and that keeps everything nice and cool, and at the same time I am getting that residue. Occasionally I'm going to use a small piece of cloth just to take off the excess so I can see what's going on there. Next grade is 400. Now because it's plastic, we want to use finer grades. We need to get a very, very good glossy finish. It has a glossy finish anyway, but we want to keep that nice glossy finish as we go through the grades. Just keep looking for that residue. Don't be afraid to keep the paper nice and wet. So the next grade will be 600 grade. And we're starting to get a nice line of shine along the top of it. Keep looking for that residue, keep moving it, don't let things get hot. Next one, 800 grade. And again, that residue, it just keeps coming. That's really what it is, of course. It is particles of the acrylic, the plastic, in solution. So we start to take that all down. $1,200 grade. Lastly, for me, 1,500. Now I do know people that go even further, but To be honest, I look at it and I think, yep, it's fine. They want to do that. I'm not sure that they get much of a better finish out of it by doing that. Now you can see this is a homemade piece, and you can see that my friend from Detroit has used different colours in there, so those colours start to come through at this point. Now you might think, well, that's a pretty good finish, and you'd be right to some degree. If I sanded that a bit more, particularly with the finer grades, it would come up really nicely. But I want to get this job done a bit, so, and I always like to use something like this. Okay, this is a friction polish, wax friction polish, and I find that this gives me a much better finish. It also gives it a little bit of hard wearing, so it makes it a little bit less susceptible. And I just use it exactly the same way as I would use friction polish normally. Just apply a coat, press on it. Pressing creates friction, that creates heat, boils off the alcohol. If I then turn it over, I think you would agree that that's got a much better finish on it now. So the next step, of course, is assembly, but we'll leave that to cool, particularly with the sheller wax on it, because the wax will be a little bit soft now, and we'll leave that to cool, and then we'll put the pen together, and I'll show you that step in a little while. See you then.